And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, President Joe Biden is in South Carolina today touting Bidenomics. And one thing he's not going to let stop him give his presentation is a teleprompter.
And to pay for low-wage workers, the pay for low-wage workers, has grown at the fastest pace in 2 decades.
Well, we know the cocaine wasn't his, because if the cocaine was his, he'd be reading that teleprompter a little bit faster.
Well, should we imagine what that sounds like?
Do we have to imagine, or can we have a prototype?
And to pay for low-wage workers, the pay for low-wage workers, has grown at the fastest pace in 2 decades.
That's how it would sound if the cocaine belonged to him.
And to pay for low-wage workers, the pay for low-wage workers, has grown at the fastest pace in 2 decades.
Thanks, Grampy Joe. Lay off the blow. 800-222-KABC is telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the Republican leader in the California Assembly. You can follow him on Twitter at J_Gallagher AD3. It's AD3 because he represents Assembly District 3, which is much of Northern California, the northeastern portion of the state. Assemblyman James Gallagher, welcome.
Hey, good to be with you again, John.
Thanks so much for stopping by. Now, you guys have just had a big leadership change in the California Assembly as there was a coup that took place within the Democratic caucus where Speaker Anthony Rendon was knocked out as Speaker by Assemblyman and now Speaker Rivas from the Central Valley. And there's no love lost between the two as former Speaker Rendon is going on a tour across the state where he's just giving 0 Fs. He said a couple of different things that caught my eye. The first one is that he essentially described the California Assembly Democratic Caucus as being a den of thieves. Here is what he said his biggest leadership mistake was as Speaker. Quote, "To a large extent, I always wanted to be forgiving and give people opportunities for redemption. I don't always know that I was as quick to punish as I should have." He also acknowledged that everything that they've done regarding the homeless has been a complete failure. Here's what he said about that. Quote, "We do press conferences and act like we've solved things, but these are problems that took generations to create and will take generations to resolve. Anyone who's told you we've made progress is lying. It's going to take a while," end quote. Some interesting remarks from the outgoing speaker.
Yeah, some definite honesty there. I mean, and especially on the homelessness thing. I mean, that's kind of saying what we all really know. They've spent billions of dollars. Had all these policy changes they've made over the last 10 years, primarily to just enable homelessness on our streets, and it's been a total failure. That was actually kind of nice to actually hear that finally said, from a Democrat, that, look, what we've been doing is not working. And they do have this tendency, I mean, it's, from housing to homelessness to, any number of things, to pass some law or appropriate money and claim victory. And, of course, crime has gotten worse. We still are not building housing at the rate that we need to make it affordable and accessible to most Californians. And look, that's just the reality of a Democratic supermajority state.
The hole in the budget right now, as projected by the governor, is $32 billion. He says he's not factoring in a recession into his modeling because he believes that Joe Biden is going to steer us through the rough waters. However, we know that because of all of the storms, people don't have to file their taxes this year until October the 16th. So even though we typically understand how much money the state's going to have by this time most years, this year we really don't know what the income is going to be. So that number might be much larger than $32 billion. In recent weeks, we spoke with John Kupal of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and Dan Walters of Cal Matters, who really follow these things closely. They think $32 billion is a low-ball number, and the actual hole in the budget is going to be significantly larger than that. And the Democrats in the state legislature are going to want to jack the tax rates up, and they're going to want to do things that right now Gavin Newsom is promising he won't do. Where do you see the budget hole when everything is said and done?
Yeah, no, I think that's an accurate assessment, and I predict that we will be coming back in the legislature in December to make some devastating cuts, up and down, because this has been a smoke and mirrors budget. It borrows from funds, it delays payments, all to just avoid the tough decisions of a massive budget shortfall. And what we're also seeing is that is likely just to continue into successive budget years, that we're going to have these big deficits. So a lot of cuts are going to have to be made. Yes, the Democrats, of course, will try to propose some creative taxes, and we'll have to fight against those. But I think the reality is they are going to have to make cuts. They're going to have to make decisions on what programs are going to have to get cut in order to actually have a balanced budget.
Gavin Newsom is termed out as governor of California. He certainly has his eyes set on the White House, and everything that he's doing right now here in California, everything that he's saying is not geared towards people like you and me, the people who live here and pay taxes here. It's geared towards Democratic primary voters in those early voting states, places like South Carolina. He doesn't want the national papers writing stories about California's budget fiasco. Given the fact that his ambitions go far beyond the state lines, do you think that's going to cause him to just want to paper this thing over and try to kick the can down the road as long as possible? Or do you think he's going to roll his sleeves up and get engaged and try to make sure that the problems and the cuts and everything that we have to deal with aren't as severe as they otherwise would be?
No, I think that's exactly the case. I mean, I think the governor realizes he has a political problem, and so he continues to try and find ways to distract from that. I mean, and most notably, trying to paint himself as the progressive liberal champion, fighting every other red state. And in fact, just continues to go to other states and ignore his own state's serious problems. I mean, just last week he was in Idaho talking to Democratic clubs in Idaho. Probably not a lot of hope for them in Idaho, but Gavin wants to use that to make more of a national message, right? And again, not focus on homelessness, which is at an all-time high in California. We saw Texas actually cut their homeless population, so red states are actually doing a better job on this than California. And then add to that the rising crime rates. Stats just came out. Crime is on the rise. We all know this. We can all see it. But now the stats are clearly showing it. Crime continues to rise in California. We're not building homes at the rate that we need to, and so homes are expensive and out of reach for far too many Californians. The price of everything from gas to your utilities to your groceries continues to rise, and if he's relying on Joe Biden to help revive the economy, we're going to be waiting a long time. I mean, as we can see, cost of living continues to rise. Inflation is still a huge problem, and I don't see that changing in the near future.
We're speaking with Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher, who you can follow on Twitter at J_Gallagher AD3. Assemblyman, whenever you talk to anyone in local government, whether it's at the city level, the county level, whatever, they do not want strings attached to funding coming from Sacramento or Washington, D.C. That handcuffs them and it limits their ability to play around with the funds and do what they think their constituents need. In recent weeks, we spoke with L.A. City Councilwoman Tracy Park, who is one of the sane members of the L.A. City Council, Democrat representing Venice Beach. And we talked about the battle that the governor was engaged in with some members of the Democratic caucus of the state legislature over whether or not the transit agencies, the public transit agencies, should be bailed out. because the transit agencies are going belly up. No one uses them. No one wants to ride them. The Democrats in Sacramento are blaming it on COVID, but all of us who live in areas that are serviced by these agencies understand COVID has nothing to do with why people aren't riding the trains. People aren't riding the trains because we've turned them over to the drug addicts and the criminals, and people don't feel safe there. Students don't feel safe there. Women don't feel safe there. Elderly people don't feel safe there. Businessmen commuting don't want their backs to crazy people having episodes on these trains. They're just not safe. In fact, the MTA here in Los Angeles, by mid-February, had more people die on it than all of last year combined. And one of the things that Councilwoman Park said is that if Sacramento is going to bail out these agencies, she hopes and prays that they have strings attached to it that forces these agencies to make these trains safe, make the buses safe, make the subway safe. Because if there's not those strings attached, these local governments in San Francisco and Los Angeles just won't do it, and they will allow the chaos to continue.
Well, look, I mean, I agree with the general principle that we put too many strings on local governments, and at the local level, you often do know, what are the needs that you have. I actually came out of local government. I was a county supervisor, and it was always frustrating when the state would send money, but you could only spend it on certain things, and it was usually things that you didn't even want to spend the money on. However, in this case, as I have said, mass transit has become mass transient. Because they've just enabled these people to come on, to not pay fares, to be shooting up on the train, exposing themselves. And you're right, that is exactly why so many people don't want to ride the trains anymore. I mean, who could blame them? It's not just COVID. They want to blame the whole thing on COVID, but exactly that. We've allowed crime and transients to take over the system, and so without some kind of accountability. Look, I don't think we should be bailing these guys out anyways, but certainly we should not be throwing money at the same failed system. And it's, not just this councilman in L.A., but actually a senator that represents the Bay Area is saying the same thing about BART. That BART has no accountability. They've had all kinds of problems. They have had issues of fraud. And without some kind of accountability, we shouldn't be giving them any more money.
Recently, legislative Republicans in Sacramento invited Ambassador Richard Grinnell to be honored during Pride Month, and Assembly, or I guess Senate Democrats were furious with that invitation. They created a temper tantrum and stormed off the floor of the California Senate. How bonkers was that day?
It just shows the hypocrisy, right? We had as Assembly Republicans had left the floor when they were honoring one of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Now we're talking about somebody who denigrated an entire religion, with these, vulgar displays on Easter. We could not condone that, and the Democrats called us all bigots for doing so, even though what we were objecting to was the actions of someone. Now, Ambassador Grinnell, has a great record of accomplishment, and was, the first openly gay member of a presidential cabinet. And, we were recognizing his many accomplishments in public service, and just trying to, draw attention to that, to celebrate that, and what this guy has done in his career. And they walked out on it. Still no really great explanation for why that was the case. But, it's once again another example of hypocrisy. They only want to celebrate people who actually agree with their ideology, and that's it. It has nothing to do, with anything else. It's just agree with us or else.
Last question before you go. This next cycle is going to be a presidential cycle. That's always tough for Republicans in blue states, places like California. We also have a U.S. Senate seat that's open and up for grabs. Currently, there are 3 members of our House delegation, all Democrats, who are running. If current polling is accurate, 2 Democrats will make the November runoff ballot. How important is it for California Republicans to get a candidate on that November ballot so Republicans have another reason to turn out?
It's very important. And there already are candidates stepping up, and so I anticipate that we will have a strong Republican candidate who will make it into the general. Always hard to get in front of that and say, hey, this is, look, we want to let voters, have some interaction with these different candidates, hear what they actually want to do. But we definitely want to see, a strong Republican candidate emerge from that field and make sure that they get into the general, because we obviously had that in previous Senate races where it was only 2 Democrats. That doesn't give people a choice. It's more of the same, right? And what we really need is to give people a choice between the kind of representation they want to have. And I think more and more we're seeing that, Californians are rejecting the policies of the supermajority. I mean, they're seeing how bad they have gotten in so many different parts of the state. And all the more reason that we need to have someone on that ballot in the general election casting a different vision, a better vision for California. So it is very important to us, and you are already seeing, Republican candidates step up. We will see who emerges as the strongest candidate there. And our focus is going to be ensuring that a Republican, makes it into the general.
Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher, representing California's 3rd District. You can find him on Twitter at J_GallagherAD3. Assemblyman Gallagher, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, John.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to one of the shows from earlier on in the week because you took a long weekend, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KBC.com, click on podcasts, or go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. Download all the episodes, every single one. You play them right there on your phone. Even if you're dummy, you can figure this out.
If the cashier is dummy.
I think that is the favorite drop from all the listeners that I have spoken to, at least.
That one definitely is the most legendary. And I believe it did win Drop of the Year last year.
If the cashier is dummy.
Who's going to win Drop of the Year in 2023? Well, we'll find out this December, but there are a lot of good contenders.
The women from Reseda did get an honorable mention.
No, I know.
They were pretty fantastic. But this year we got some great stuff, too.
Ooh, this doesn't look too good.
Or
Go forward! No!
Who wins the bronze?
Maybe it's this guy.
Well, we're certainly going to have to wait until around the time that we celebrate the birth of the baby Jesus to find out who is the winner.
Oh, wait, I forgot this one's from 2023.
We often lead from the front, but it is time for us to lead from the back.
But it just didn't feel big enough.
It's just a clearinghouse today. And right now it's time to open up the KABC Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions? No, I know.
And Randy, today's edition involves a seasoned citizen.
That's right. There are a lot of scams that get reported in the local media, but this one sticks out because a woman believes she was hypnotized over the phone and over the internet to buy a whole bunch of gift cards for a scammer.
For more, here's KCal.
I was hypnotized. I was doing exactly what he told me to do.
And you really thought that she made enough of that Life Alert money that she wouldn't fall victim to this.
Press the button.
I was hypnotized. I was doing exactly what he told me to do.
Only on KCal News, the power of suggestion used to set up a 96-year-old woman in a
We can turn down the music now. We're in the segment. Maybe they're trying to hypnotize us.
Well, and she's 96, so you have to be able to hear her. So turn that music down.
Costly scam. A Seal Beach senior was scammed out of thousands of dollars after police say she was hypnotized through an internet pop-up scam.
She shared her story. She clicked on a pop-up.
I'm guessing she lives at Leisure World.
She shared her story with KCAL News reporter Rena Nakano, hoping it will help others from becoming victims.
When you ask Edith Wilmoth what's her secret to a long and healthy...
You ever met anyone young named Edith?
No, it's like Betty.
You're just born 70.
You ever find a young Marge?
When you ask Edith Wilmoth what's her secret to a long and healthy life, the 96-year-old's answers are genes, regular exercise.
And I read the paper and I do puzzles, and so my brain is still active.
Oh, bless her heart.
I wonder if she reads my column because the Orange County Register carries it.
So when she became the victim of an elder scam in April, she could not believe it.
Never would have done that.
It started when she was checking on her travel itinerary online. A pop-up with a bright yellow light began blinking, followed by a loud woman's voice.
Whoa!
Was it Cecily Mayart Cruz?
That would freak me out. Imagine that you are staring at your screen, you're checking your travel itinerary, and then a pop-up shows up and a woman just starts screaming,
5 weeks!
I don't know if that would hypnotize me. That may cause me to fall out of the chair, but it certainly wouldn't hypnotize me.
Yellow light began blinking, followed by a loud woman's voice.
That's all she said. Do not turn off your computer. Do not turn off your computer.
Fearing a serious...
Oh, boy. Whoever designed this is extra cruel.
I wonder if they could tell from her IP address that she was at Leisure World.
Well, either they could tell from the location or, like most data mining, they check out what you're looking at on your social media. If you happen to be buying adult diapers on Amazon, I think they have an idea of who they're going after.
Do not turn...
Bless her heart.
Do not turn off your computer. Do not turn off your computer.
Fearing a serious problem with her computer, she called the number on the screen. Then came an hours-long conversation.
Now, this is when you call the grandkids.
Yes. Do not call the number on your screen.
I can't tell you how many times relatives in my family or my wife's family have told us about someone they've just started talking to on Facebook that wants them to click on this link. We say, no, you got to get off of there.
Do not do it.
Fearing a serious problem with her computer, she called the number on the screen. Then came an hours-long conversation with a man with a soothing voice, directing her to get into her car and buy some gift cards.
Oh, wow.
So it was local.
This isn't even like, give me your credit card number. This is, well, I've got you on the phone here. Can you head down to the Home Depot?
I thought she was talking to somebody in Nigeria.
Let's go try Kohl's first.
When she arrived, the attendant recognized something wasn't right, so she did not accept Wilmoth's $2,000 request.
Now, that cashier, Johnny, is not a dummy.
If the cashier is dummy.
No, they are not. $2,000 at Kohl's?
On gift cards. Nobody has ever spent $2,000 at Kohl's.
Let's go try Kohl's first.
When she arrived, the attendant recognized something wasn't right, so she did not accept Wilmoth's $2,000 request. But the scammer then directed her to go to Lowe's, where she bought a $6,000 gift card.
The cashier at Lowe's?
If the cashier is dummy.
$6,000? That's like a bath remodel.
You have a 96-year-old woman go up and want to spend $6,000 on gift cards, and that doesn't raise any red flags? You don't call your supervisor?
How much lumber does a 96-year-old need?
You could buy almost every power tool in aisle 23, and it's not going to add up to $6,000.
So, what was her name?
Edith.
So, Edith, you're buying a $6,000 gift card here at Lowe's. What are you doing with your spare time? Remodeling the kitchen? Maybe a casita, perhaps? What are you doing in terms of home improvement?
And the whole time she's on the phone with the scammer who's giving her the instructions on what to do. And nobody stops this from happening. Kohl's figured out something was going on, but not at Lowe's.
She's like a long-distance hostage.
Bless this woman's heart, and whoever's doing this belongs in the seventh circle of hell.
But the scammer then directed her to go to Lowe's, where she bought a $6,000 gift card. She's a smart...
I didn't even know you could buy a $6,000 gift card.
No, they run out at like $500 at Target.
Cashier looks at this. Boy, your grandson's going to have a really happy birthday.
When you buy these gift cards for the steakhouse, which I always do for people around the holidays, you get gift cards for $50, and then they put 2 of them in a sleeve. And then if you want to get a $200 one, you have to get 2 sleeves with 4 $50 gift cards. I wonder if they gave her like 1 million gift cards to add up to $6,000 or $7,000.
She had just a stack of 100 of these things.
She's a smart, active woman, so I asked her why she fell for it. She said there could only be one answer.
I was hypnotized. I was doing exactly what he told me to do.
Well, that's one answer.
Okay, how does the scammer get the cards? Did she put them in the mail?
I believe so. Maybe she drove it to his house. Also, she's driving. That is also scary.
Yes, that's true.
But I don't know if this is so much as hypnosis or she hasn't heard from her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren in a while and was desperate for the sound of a human voice.
Oh, yes. You can always tell when you're at the bank and there's someone who's older in front of you. If they get to that teller and they haven't talked to someone for a while because they live alone and their kids and their grandkids are living their own life, they'll know everything about that teller by the time they leave. And even if they're only withdrawing $20, that transaction will take 15 minutes.
That's why, kids, you got to check in with Grandma.
Give them a call.
15 minutes.
I was hypnotized. I was doing exactly what he told me to do.
Because now that money's not in the will for you.
No. Now that money's in the Pony Express somewhere.
Seal Beach Police says there's been a drastic increase in scams targeting seniors. They include family imposters, where scammers often pose as grandchildren in trouble needing money. Imposters who...
Hi, Edith. It's your granddaughter, Tina.
Stop.
Imposters who claim they are from the IRS, Social Security, or even the state lottery, saying they need personal information, or computer scammers who confuse seniors into buying gift cards.
Can you be put into a hypnotic trance from blinking? Here it is, right here.
Wilmeth reported the crime.
I would get off the computer, Edith.
Yeah. She may need someone in the room with her when she's going through her email.
Wilmeth reported the crime to police and is now in the process of disputing the charges. She's hoping this never happens to anyone else.
You know, if I buy something more than $200, my credit card company calls me saying, what the hell is going on?
They shut it down. Are you telling me that American Express doesn't look at a 96-year-old woman buying $6,000 worth of gift cards at Lowe's, and that doesn't get flagged by the algorithm?
Oh, she's probably going to build a shed in her backyard.
Don't let them do this. Of course, like the police said, if I were hypnotized, other people are too, and the same thing would happen to them.
In Seal Beach, I'm Rena Nakano, KCAL News.
Have you ever been on a cruise ship where they have a hypnotist that performs in front of an audience?
I assume you have.
I have many times. And I enjoy going to those shows. Sometimes they have someone who juggles. Sometimes they have a comic. Sometimes they have a song and dance man. The one I enjoy the least are the hypnotists, because I cannot imagine myself. I've tried it a couple of times. Nothing works with me. They think that they're putting me under hypnosis. They don't. I can't imagine a cruise ship performer ever successfully being able to put me under hypnosis, let alone over the telephone.
Now, do you think the scammer, when they're on the phone, they do something to double check to make sure this is working before they tell them to go to Lowe's and drop $6,000? Do you think they tell the woman on the other side, "Can you cluck like a chicken for me?"
That's the View.
It would work on Joy.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
We're getting a lot of response to the woman that says she was hypnotized when she got scammed over the internet and over the phone and bought $6,000 worth of gift cards at Lowe's. Nick writes in, says, this happens all the time. I worked at the Target in Seal Beach. I stopped it many times. Leisure World.
Told you it was Leisure World.
I believe it was.
That is a beautiful part of Seal Beach, by the way.
It's gorgeous down there.
And very, very, very close to one of my favorite, well, let's just call it my favorite OC restaurant, Captain Jack's.
Oh, here's one you'll like. Vince writes in, J.P. Morgan Chase had to pay $290 million because they should have been aware of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Using that logic, isn't Lowe's responsible for the old lady?
Well, she's disputing the charge, so I think American Express is going to eat it.
How do they not reject that payment?